1. Judgment is the prison of the weak. There's a deep contradiction that lives in most of us, a paradox that Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, identified centuries ago. It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own. Why do we place so much weight on the views of others while dismissing our own reason, our own experience, our own conscience? We say we love ourselves, yet we betray that love every time we allow someone else's opinion to dictate how we act, speak, or live. This is not harmless. It's the silent surrender of autonomy. Every time we alter our behavior to fit into someone else's expectations, whether out of fear of judgment or hunger for approval, we hand over a piece of our inner freedom. Slowly, quietly, almost imperceptibly, we stop living as individuals and start performing for an audience. Marcus Aurelius was clear about this. Living for the gaze of others is a spiritual error. It's a form of self-betrayal, an act of giving away what should never be sold, the sovereignty of your mind. He likened it to selling your soul to public opinion. And the metaphor is precise. The moment you begin to care more about being liked than being just, more about being praised than being honest, you are no longer in control. You are owned, not by chains, but by glances, not by laws, but by whispers. The Stoics taught that the only true freedom is inner freedom, the kind that arises when your choices are governed by reason, not reaction. But when we allow judgment to define us, we reverse this principle. We abandon rational self-rule in exchange for external validation. We become puppets moved by invisible strings, by likes, gossip, criticism, approval. Why does this happen? Part of it is biological. As social creatures, humans are wired to seek acceptance. But Stoicism doesn't deny our nature. It seeks to elevate it. The goal isn't to become cold or indifferent. The goal is to become self-sufficient. In Stoic philosophy, self-sufficiency is not about material independence. It's about psychological sovereignty. It means not needing applause to feel worthy, not needing agreement to feel right, not needing the world to echo back your worth in order to believe it yourself. This doesn't mean we reject all feedback. Wisdom is open to correction. But there is a vast difference between welcoming truth and worshiping opinion. The former is a strength, the latter is a prison. True Stoic strength is the ability to hear criticism without collapse, to receive praise without inflation, and to move forward with reason as your guide, not reputation. Because the Stoic knows, public perception is fickle. People cheer you today and cancel you tomorrow. One moment you're wise, the next a fool. If your identity is built on such shifting sands, you will never know peace. So the Stoic builds on rock, on reason, integrity, and clarity of mind. They are not reactive, but reflective. They don't perform, they live. And when faced with the judgments of others, they ask a simple question. Is it true? If yes, accept and grow. If no, release it. Let it pass like wind against a mountain. This is the essence of Stoic self-sufficiency, a soul that does not tremble with every shout from the crowd, a mind that does not bend to every raised eyebrow, a life guided not by popularity, but by principle. And in this way, the Stoic is not merely indifferent to judgment. They are liberated from it, not because they reject others, but because they no longer need them to approve who they already are. 2. No one truly knows you except yourself. Marcus Aurelius offered a piercing reminder to those of us who still live under the gaze of others. Don't waste the rest of your life worrying about what others think of you. It sounds simple, but it's a kind of freedom that few of us actually reach. Most people spend a lifetime trying to control the impressions they leave behind, curating, adjusting, polishing, performing, all for a world that only ever sees the surface. The truth is stark. No one truly knows you. Not the coworkers who smile at your jokes, not the neighbors who wave politely, not even your friends or family. They may know parts, fragments, reflections, but the full, unfiltered reality of your inner life belongs to you alone. So why do we live to be understood by those who don't and can't really understand us? Marcus wasn't dismissing connection, but he was urging focus. You have one brief life. Will you spend it strategizing how to fit into minds that barely glimpse you? Or will you turn inward and finally start living as the person you know yourself to be? Seneca echoed this when he wrote, "What you think of yourself is more important than what others think of you." And that's not just advice, it's a warning. When you live for the approval of others, You slowly lose the ability to approve of yourself. Your desires blur, your principles soften. You forget what you want, what you believe, what you stand for, because you're too busy trying to avoid rejection or win admiration. A person who bases their worth on the crowd is like a ship sailing without a compass. No direction, just drifting with every wind of opinion, every wave of expectation. Eventually, they forget what destination they set out for in the first place. Seneca's insight is that living this way is not just unwise, it's dangerous. It leads to a fractured soul. You might be popular, even praised, but inwardly you are divided. And no one can live with that tension forever without paying the price, in regret, in anxiety, in a slow erosion of integrity. That's why Epictetus challenges us with one of the most difficult but essential truths in Stoic practice. If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. That's the cost of self-respect. If you are serious about becoming who you were meant to be, not who others think you should be, you must accept misunderstanding. You must even embrace being underestimated, because growth is not always graceful. Wisdom doesn't always look impressive from the outside. Sometimes it means walking away from what is popular. Sometimes it means being silent when others are loud. Sometimes it means being doubted, mocked, or ignored while still holding your ground. To the Stoic, this is not a tragedy, it's a test of whether you live by reason or by reputation, whether your actions are directed by your inner compass or by the shifting moods of the crowd. There is a deep peace that comes when you no longer need to be seen as right, admired, clever, successful, when you can be invisible and still certain of your value, when you can be misunderstood and still loyal to your principles. That's what it means to be truly free. Because the truth is, no one can know you fully, and no one needs to. What matters is that you know yourself clearly, honestly, and without distortion, that you are not a mystery to your own mind, that you don't lose yourself in the effort to be liked. To live this way is to reclaim your life. It's to stop performing and start being. It's to stop editing your existence for the comfort of others and to live in alignment with your soul. That, the Stoics teach us, is the foundation of all dignity. 3. Why do people judge, and why should you not care? Marcus Aurelius, in his timeless meditations, reminds us of a liberating truth. They are not judging you. They are judging their version of you. And that version, it's never complete. It's shaped by their assumptions, projections, insecurities, biases, past wounds, and unmet desires. When someone casts judgment on you, they are not seeing you. They are reacting to a mental caricature, a blurry snapshot created in their mind based on fragments and distortions. People do not judge with objectivity. They judge through the lens of their own narrative. That's why judgment often says more about the one doing the judging than the one being judged. It reveals their values, their fears, and their limitations, not your worth. You may be walking through something painful. You may have made a decision after hours of reflection or chosen a path no one else understands, but none of that is visible from the outside. To a stranger, all they see is a moment, a surface, a headline without the story, and yet they judge. Epictetus, always direct, offers the Stoic response: ignore it. He reminds us that people see only your reactions, never your reasons. They don't see your context. They don't know what led up to your choices. They don't see your discipline, your sacrifice, your quiet victories. To react to their judgment is to give weight to an opinion that lacks foundation. In his famous words, it's not events that upset us, but our judgment about them. And the same applies to people's opinions. Their criticism is not the cause of your suffering. It is your belief that their criticism matters that creates the disturbance. Strip away that belief, and their words lose their power. The Stoic doesn't seek to be immune from insult. They seek to be indifferent to it. Not because it's easy, but because it's necessary for peace. Seneca offers the most sobering warning of all. The mob has no loyalty. Today it worships you. Tomorrow it crucifies you. In a world addicted to rapid judgment and even faster reversal, public opinion is perhaps the most unstable force you can attach your identity to. One moment you're praised for being bold, the next condemned for being arrogant. One day you're admired for your vulnerability, the next ridiculed for your weakness. This volatility is not an accident. It is the nature of the crowd. And to anchor your sense of self in something so fickle, is to live in permanent insecurity. What the Stoics teach is not contempt for others, but detachment from their evaluations. They are allowed to speak. You are not required to internalize. What would change in your life if you stopped filtering your decisions through imaginary critics? What kind of person would you become if you lived according to your reasoned judgment, not borrowed expectations? True peace does not come from being admired. It comes from being self-directed, from standing calmly in the truth of your choices, even when misunderstood. To be stoic is not to be indifferent to connection, but to be independent of flattery or rejection. Let others judge. Let them misunderstand. Let them praise or condemn. That's their burden to carry. Yours is to walk the path of integrity, quietly, steadily, without needing permission. Because once you truly understand why people judge and how little those judgments reflect anything real, you are free. And freedom, as Epictetus reminds us, is the only goal worthy of a rational being. 4. Silence and indifference to public opinion as a sign of inner strength. There is a strength that speaks without sound, a kind of resistance that doesn't require shouting, debating, or defending. The Stoics understood this deeply, that in a noisy world obsessed with image and validation, silence is not weakness, it is power. Marcus Aurelius offers a simple but piercing reminder: leave the wrong with the wrongdoer. When someone misunderstands you, slanders you, or distorts your intention, the instinct is to correct them, to justify yourself, to reclaim control over the narrative. But Marcus urges restraint. Why chase after a perception you didn't create? Why fight to fix a distortion rooted in someone else's ignorance or ego? If someone insists on misunderstanding you, let them. You are not required to participate in every misjudgment. In fact, the more you grow, the more often you will be misunderstood. And that's not your problem to solve. Your task is not to live in a way that looks right to others. Your task is to live in alignment with reason and let others think what they want. This is what Epictetus calls true freedom, the ability to remain unmoved by the expectations of others. The crowd wants you to react. They want you to explain, to conform, to obey the invisible scripts of social behavior. But the Stoic defies that pressure, not through rebellion, but through calm, deliberate stillness. Freedom is the only worthy goal in life, Epictetus reminds us. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. And nothing lies more outside your control than what others think, expect, or assume about you. To remain silent in the face of false judgment is not to surrender. It is to choose your battles wisely. It is to recognize that inner peace is a higher priority than public approval. Silence in the Stoic tradition is not passive. It is an act of discipline, a refusal to let the noise of the world invade the sanctuary of your mind. Seneca, as always, captures this with elegance. To be great is to be misunderstood. Greatness requires a willingness to be seen wrongly, to be interpreted unfairly, to walk alone, not out of bitterness, but out of clarity. The wise are not desperate to be understood because they understand themselves. They know when to speak, and more importantly, when to remain silent. In a world addicted to commentary, reaction, and visibility, the person who chooses quietness becomes an anomaly, and often a threat, because they cannot be manipulated by praise or provoked by blame. Their sense of self is not a mirror of public opinion, but a fortress built from rational thought and inner conviction. Silence, then, is not retreat. It is resistance. It is the calm of the person who refuses to dance for applause or bleed for approval. It is the presence of someone who does not explain every step they take, because they don't need permission to walk their own path. The Stoics did not aim to impress the world. They aimed to master themselves. So let the world misread you. Let it label you. Let it speculate, criticize, admire, or ignore. Your silence is not agreement. It is not weakness. It is the mark of someone who no longer gives their peace away to strangers. And the most dangerous kind of strength in the modern age is the person who does not need to be seen to feel whole. Let them talk. Let them guess. You stay still, stay silent, and keep walking. 5. The cost of living through the eyes of others. There is a hidden price we pay when we choose to live according to the gaze of others. At first, it feels harmless, even rewarding. A compliment here, some applause there. But over time, what begins as a small compromise becomes a way of life. And that life, it no longer belongs to you. Marcus Aurelius warned us plainly, ambition means tying your well-being to what other people say or do. And in doing so, we hand over the most sacred part of ourselves, our inner freedom, fame, recognition, social validation. These seem like achievements, but they are actually forms of dependence. When your happiness requires the approval of strangers, you are no longer free. You are performing, constantly adjusting yourself to remain in favor, to avoid criticism, to gain applause. But what happens when the crowd changes its mind? What happens when the applause fades, when the approval disappears? If your identity is built on their opinions, it collapses with them. The Stoics understood this trap clearly. They saw how ambition, when driven by the desire to be admired, becomes a prison, not made of iron, but of expectations. Epictetus offers a sobering truth. Freedom is not achieved by satisfying desire, but by eliminating it. And among the most dangerous desires is the longing to be seen a certain way, to be liked, admired, accepted. When that desire owns you, fear follows. You fear disapproval, you fear rejection, you fear being misunderstood. And so you edit yourself, you dull your edges, you bury your truth, you say what's expected, not what's honest. This is the tragedy. You stop being yourself just to remain palatable to others. You start to live in fragments, carefully curated to please each audience. You become a collection of masks, losing touch with the one face that truly matters, your own. And here's the harshest truth of all. Even if you succeed in pleasing the world, it will not last. Marcus Aurelius puts it bluntly, consider how soon you will be dead and none of it will matter. Everything you feared, all the judgments, all the gossip, all the raised eyebrows will vanish, and so will the praise, the admiration, the attention, all of it will dissolve into nothing. You are mortal. Everyone who has an opinion about you is mortal, and one day, none of those opinions will survive. So what was the point? Why waste this short, fragile life chasing the illusions of external approval when you could have lived honestly, freely, on your own terms? The wise person does not seek to be remembered. They seek to be real. They do not adjust themselves to please the momentary crowd. They align themselves with what is eternal, reason, virtue, and inner peace. Living for others may earn you applause, but it costs you yourself. And that is a trade no wise person makes. You do not owe the world a performance. You owe it your authenticity. So stop living as if every action needs an audience. Stop walking as if someone is always watching. Stop shaping yourself to fit the expectations of people who don't even know you, or worse, don't care. You will die. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but soon enough that all these opinions you fear will become irrelevant. So make your choices now, not for their gaze, but for your soul. And when the fear of judgment comes, remember, it is a price you no longer have to pay. 6, then who should you live for, and how should you live? After stripping away the need for external approval, the question naturally arises, if not for them, then who? If we are not to live through the eyes of others, whose gaze should guide our life? The Stoics offer a radical but liberating answer. Live for logos, the universal reason that governs nature, not for the fleeting opinions of the crowd. Marcus Aurelius, a Stoic emperor who lived amidst both praise and criticism, reminds us, if it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. This is the compass, not applause, not agreement, but truth and righteousness as defined by reason, not popularity. To live for logos means to align your thoughts and actions with what is eternally right, not temporarily acceptable. It means you no longer need validation, only integrity. Your life becomes a dialogue with the cosmos, not with your social circle. And here lies the first transformation. You begin to act from inner conviction, not external pressure. You begin to live quietly, but with astonishing strength. Seneca once wrote, "A wise man is content with himself." In a world obsessed with external stimulation, the Stoic turns inward, not to escape, but to find clarity. Solitude is no longer loneliness, it is self-sufficiency. You become your own companion, your own mirror, your own judge. You stop asking, what do they think of me? And begin asking, what do I think of myself when no one is looking? This shift is subtle, but revolutionary. Most people spend their lives building a persona for others. The Stoic builds character for himself. He no longer performs. He lives. Living for yourself, however, is not the same as living selfishly. It means living with purpose, living deliberately, living in a way that allows you to face yourself without shame. To reach that level of freedom, the Stoics gave us one final and humbling tool: the reminder of death. Marcus Aurelius urged, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." When you live as though you've already died, the fear of judgment vanishes. There is nothing left to prove, nothing left to protect, nothing left to fake. You speak only what is necessary. You act only from conviction. You drop the need for approval like a heavy coat that no longer fits, because you realize this moment is all you own. Death is not a threat, it is clarity. It clears away the illusions of reputation and status. It silences the need to impress. It reminds you that living authentically is not just wise, it is urgent. What the Stoics propose is not a philosophy of detachment, but of deep engagement, not with the world's noise, but with your inner voice. So who should you live for? Not the mob, not the market, not even your legacy, but for the truth within you, the part of you that answers only to virtue, reason, and courage. And how should you live? Calmly, clearly, with enough strength to be misunderstood, with enough humility to admit when you've gone astray, and with enough silence to hear the voice of Logos over the shouting of the crowd. This is not the easy life, it is not the popular life, but it is the life that is truly yours. And in the end, that is the only life worth living.